The old data chip had been sitting in a forgotten archive for 200 years. Nobody had looked at it. Nobody had cared. It was just another piece of junk from the early days when humans first reached the stars. Ava Reyes found it by accident. She was a young diplomat, assigned to organize historical records on a refugee ship called the Wandering Hope. Boring work. The kind of job they gave to people fresh out of academy. But Ava was thorough. She opened every file. She read every document. And when she found the encrypted chip, she spent 3 weeks breaking its code. What she found inside changed everything. The file contained a distress signal from the year 2647. Back then, humanity was young and weak in a galaxy full of ancient powers. A colony ship carrying 12,000 humans had broken down in dead space. No fuel, no food, no hope. They sent out a call for help, expecting nothing. But someone answered. A species called the Moro heard the signal. They were gentle beings who looked like walking trees, with bark-like skin and 4 long arms. They were traders, not warriors. They had no reason to help the humans. No profit to gain. No alliance to build. They helped anyway. The Moro convoy changed its course. They gave the humans their fuel. They shared their food. They used their own ships to tow the broken colony vessel for 3 months across empty space. By the time they reached a human outpost, 40 Moro had starved to death so that the humans could eat. Their captain was an elder named Gentle Branch and Wind. Before he died, he recorded a message. Ava played it on her screen, and his voice filled the small room. It was soft, like wind through leaves. "We do not save lives for reward," he said. "We save them because all thinking beings are kin." Ava sat in the darkness for a long time after the recording ended. Then she started searching for more information about the Moro. What she found made her blood run cold. The Moro homeworld had gone silent 80 years ago. No signals, no ships, no contact. The galactic community had noticed, briefly. But the Moro were a small species with no military and no political power. Nobody investigated. Nobody asked questions. They simply vanished from history, and the galaxy moved on. 12,000 humans lived because the Moro died for them. And when the Moro needed help, nobody came. Ava did not sleep that night. She copied every file, every record, every piece of evidence she could find. Then she requested an emergency meeting with Admiral David Okonkwo, commander of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. The admiral was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in 3 wars. He had seen terrible things. But when he read the files Ava brought him, something changed in his face. The tiredness faded. Something harder took its place. "How certain are you about this?" he asked. "Completely certain, sir. The records are authentic. The Moros saved our people. And now they are gone." Okonkwo stood and walked to the window of his office. Outside, stars burned in the endless black. Somewhere out there, a species that had given everything for humanity had disappeared without a trace. "Do we know what happened to them?" he asked. "No, sir. But I intend to find out." The admiral turned back to face her. "You have already done more than your duty required. Most people would have filed the chip and forgotten about it. I am not most people, sir." For the first time, Okonkwo smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "No, you are not." He picked up his communicator. "I am calling an emergency session of the United Human Council. You will present your findings." "Sir, the Council has more important matters to deal with. Trade disputes, border conflicts. They will not care about a species that vanished 80 years ago. Then we will make them care." Okonkwo's voice was quiet but firm. "The Moro died so that humans could live. They asked for nothing. They expected nothing. But they deserved better than to be forgotten." He looked at the files on his desk, at the image of Gentle Branch and Wind, at the faces of the 12,000 humans who had survived because of alien kindness. "We have a debt, Ava. A debt 200 years old. And humanity pays its debts." 3 days later, Ava stood before the council and told them the story of the Moro. Some of the council members looked bored. Some looked impatient. But by the time she finished, every face in the room had changed. Admiral Okonkwo spoke last. "I am not asking for your permission," he said. "I am informing you of my intentions. We will find out what happened to the Moro. We will find any survivors. And we will bring them home." One council member raised his hand. "And if this brings us into conflict with other powers? The political cost could be enormous." Okonkwo did not hesitate. "Then the cost will be paid. Some debts are more important than politics. The vote was unanimous. 1 week later, 40 ships jumped into fold space, heading for the Moro homeworld. The largest non-military expedition in human history, launched to repay a debt that most of the galaxy had forgotten, but humanity remembered. Humanity always remembered. The Moro homeworld was beautiful and dead. Captain Nadia Volkov had seen abandoned places before. War zones, plague worlds, stations hit by raiders. But this was different. This world had not been destroyed. It had been emptied. Cities stood intact beneath purple skies. Buildings grown from living wood rose like frozen forests. Streets paved with polished amber wound between structures that looked more like art than architecture. Everything was preserved. Everything was silent, no bodies. No damage. No sign of violence. The Moro had simply vanished. Nadia led her ground team through the capital city. Their footsteps echoed in streets that had not heard sound in 80 years. Plants had grown wild, covering walls and breaking through windows. But the structures beneath remained solid. "This makes no sense," said Private Kofi Mensah, the youngest member of her team. "Where did they all go?" "That is what we are here to find out." They found the central archive at the heart of the city. It was a massive structure shaped like a great tree, with branches reaching toward the sky and roots diving deep underground. Inside, Moro data crystals waited in organized rows, untouched by time. The human linguists got to work immediately. The Moro language was difficult, but not impossible. They had been traders once, and traders leave records. 2 days later, they had their answer. Nadia read the translation with growing horror. The Moro had not been killed. They had been taken. 200 years ago, a Moro trading ship had accidentally damaged a cargo vessel belonging to a powerful group called the Hegemony of Scales. The damage was small, a dented hull, some lost cargo. In any fair system, the Moro would have paid a reasonable fine and moved on. But the Hegemony was not fair. They imposed penalties. Interest, legal fees, more penalties on the unpaid penalties. The debt grew and grew until no amount of payment could ever clear it. And when the Moro finally could not pay, the Hegemony invoked an ancient galactic law. They claimed the entire Moro species as property. The recordings showed everything. Moro families being loaded onto transport ships. Parents separated from children. Elders dragged away from their communities. The Hegemony representatives stood by, reading legal documents in cold voices while an entire civilization was taken apart. "This is lawful," one of them said on the recording. A reptilian creature with green scales and empty eyes. They agreed to the terms. They knew the consequences. Nadia wanted to break something. She wanted to scream. But she forced herself to keep watching. The final recording was different. A Moro leader, old and tired, speaking to a hidden camera. Her name was Strong Root Against Storm, and she knew her people were doomed. "We cannot fight them," she said. "We cannot run, but we can hope. We are sending our children to different worlds, scattering them like seeds. Perhaps some will survive. Perhaps some will find help." She paused, and her wooden face seemed to crack with emotion. "There is a place called Ashfall Station in the Outer Rim. We are sending seedlings there. The humans will remember. They must remember. 200 years ago, we gave everything for them. Now we ask only this: remember us. Find our children. Bring them home." The recording ended. Nadia stood in silence for a long moment. Then she opened a secure channel to Admiral Okonkwo. "Sir, I have news. The Moro are alive. At least some of them. But the situation is worse than we imagined." She transmitted the files, the translations, the recordings, everything. The Admiral's response came quickly. His voice was tight with controlled anger. "I have reviewed your findings. The Hegemony of Scales. I know them. They control 200 star systems. They have trade agreements across the galaxy. They are powerful, wealthy, and completely legal in everything they do." "Legal does not mean right, sir." "No, it does not." A pause. "Find Ashfall Station. Find the Moro survivors. I want to know exactly what we are dealing with before we make our next move." "And then, sir?" Another pause. Longer this time. "The Moro asked us to remember them. They trusted that humanity would not forget kindness. They were right to trust." His voice hardened. "Find them, Captain. Find them and tell them that help is coming. Tell them that humanity pays its debts." Nadia ended the transmission and looked around at her team. Kofi, the linguists, the engineers, All of them had heard the recordings. All of them had seen what the hegemony had done. "You heard the Admiral," she said. "We have a mission. Ashfall Station, Outer Rim. Somewhere out there, the children of our saviors are waiting." She walked back through the empty streets of the beautiful dead city. The Moro had built something wonderful here, something peaceful, and the hegemony had taken it all away, not through war, but through paperwork and legal tricks. But the Moro had hoped. Even at the end, they had hoped. They had sent their children into the darkness and trusted that someone would come for them. 200 years late, someone finally had. Nadia looked up at the purple sky and made a silent promise that we are coming. Hold on just a little longer, that we are coming. The child's hands were bleeding. Rosa Martinez saw them first through her cargo inspector disguise. Small hands, 4 of them, covered in cuts from the sharp rocks of the mine. The child was Moro, maybe 8 years old, and she had been working in the tunnels since before the sun rose. Ashfall Station was worse than anyone had imagined. Rosa had spent 2 months infiltrating the massive asteroid mining complex. She had seen labor camps before. She had seen suffering. But nothing had prepared her for this. The Moro were slaves. Generations of them, born into bondage. They worked 18-hour shifts in the deep mines, pulling rare minerals from the rock with their 4 strong arms. They ate barely enough to survive. They slept in cramped metal rooms stacked with bunks. They had no rights, no freedom, no hope. And it was all completely legal. The hegemony of scales owned this station. They owned the mines. And according to galactic trade law, they owned the Moro themselves. The debt from 200 years ago had never been paid. Interest had accumulated. Penalties had multiplied. The Moro now owed more than they could ever repay. So they worked. Forever. Rosa watched the bleeding child shuffle back toward the tunnels. A hegemony overseer, a scaled creature with a shock stick, shouted at her to move faster. The child flinched and hurried on. Rosa's hands shook with rage. But she forced herself to stay calm. She had a mission. She needed information. Over the following weeks, she learned how the system worked. Moro children were taken from their parents at age 6 and trained for specific jobs. The best workers were given slightly better food. The weak, the old, and the injured were processed. Nobody explained what that word meant. Nobody needed to. The Moro did not fight back. They did not complain. 80 years of slavery had broken something inside them. They moved through their days like ghosts, doing what they were told, dying when their bodies gave out. But some of them still remembered. Rosa met the bleeding child again in a storage room. Her name was Soft Rain at Dawn, and she was different from the others. There was something in her eyes that the hegemony had not crushed. Something that looked almost like hope. "You are not like them," the child said, studying Rosa with ancient eyes and a young face. "You watch. You write things down." "What?" Rosa hesitated. Then she made a decision that broke every rule of intelligence work. "I am human," she said quietly. "Do you know what that means?" The child's eyes went wide. She reached into a hidden pocket and pulled out a piece of metal, worn smooth by countless hands. It was a colony insignia, the symbol of New Brisbane. "My grandmother gave this to my mother," Soft Rain whispered. "She said the Starwalkers saved us once. She said they would come back. She said they would remember." Rosa felt tears burning in her eyes. "Your grandmother was right. The others say she was foolish. They say nobody is coming. They say we will work here until we die, and our children will work after us, forever." Rosa knelt down so she was at eye level with the child. "Listen to me. Your grandmother was not foolish. The humans are coming. I am here because we finally learned what happened to your people. And we are not going to leave you here. Promise. I promise." That night, Rosa broke every protocol. She sent an encrypted transmission directly to Admiral Okonkwo. She did not ask for permission. She did not follow procedure. She simply told him everything she had seen: the mines, the children, the bleeding hands, the hope that some of the Moro still carried, passed down through generations like a sacred flame. "They are waiting for us," she wrote. "They never stopped believing. Sir, we cannot abandon them. Whatever the cost, whatever the consequences, we have to get them out." The response came 12 hours later. It was not from an aide or a secretary. It was from the Admiral himself. "Your report has been shared with the Council." There was debate. There were objections. Some argued that we cannot afford to make enemies of the hegemony. Some said the political cost is too high. Rosa's heart sank. "I overruled them all." She read the next lines 3 times to make sure she understood. The Moro died so that our ancestors could live. They asked for nothing. They expected nothing. But they hoped that if their children ever needed help, we would come. That hope has been passed down for 200 years. We will not betray it. A fleet is being assembled. 40 warships. The largest humanitarian mission in human history. We will arrive at Ashfall Station in 3 months. Your job is to stay alive until then. Can you do that? Rosa looked at the message. Then she looked out the small window at the dark tunnels where Moro children worked and bled and died. She typed her response with steady hands. I will be here, sir. And so will they. Humanity pays its debts. Somewhere in the depths of the station, soft rain at dawn slept with a worn piece of metal clutched in her 4 small hands. She dreamed of stars. 40 human warships dropped out of fold space with no warning. They did not hide. They did not sneak. They appeared in the sky above Ashfall Station like a storm made of steel and fire. Their message was simple. It played on every frequency, in every language, across the entire system. We are here for our friends. The hegemony of scales was not used to being challenged. They had ruled their 200-star systems for 1,000 years. They had crushed rebellions, absorbed rivals, and built an empire on trade, law, and fear. No species had openly defied them in centuries, until now. Director Voris, the senior hegemony official at Ashfall Station, was a tall creature covered in green scales. His eyes were yellow and cold. He had overseen the Moro mining operation for 30 years, and he had never once thought of his workers as anything but property. He opened a communication channel to the human fleet. Admiral Okonkwo, he said, his voice smooth and controlled. This is an unexpected visit. I must inform you that you are trespassing in hegemony territory. The Moro are legal property of our consortium. Their debt is documented. Their servitude is lawful. You have no standing here. The Admiral's face appeared on screen. He was calm, almost peaceful, but there was something in his eyes that made Voris uncomfortable. I have a question, Okonkwo said. What was the original debt? Voris blinked. I beg your pardon. The debt. The one that justified enslaving an entire species. What was it for? I do not see how that is relevant. Humor me. Voris checked his records. He had never actually looked at the original complaint. Why would he? The debt was legal. That was all that mattered. 200 years ago, a Moro trading vessel damaged a hegemony cargo ship. The damage was minor. A dented hull. Some lost cargo. The original fine was approximately 50,000 credits. And now, Voris checked again. With interest, penalties, legal fees, and administrative costs, the current debt stands at 847 trillion credits. There was a long silence. 847 trillion credits, Okonkwo repeated. For a dented hull. Interest compounds, Admiral. The Moro agreed to the terms. Did they agree to have their children born into slavery? Did they agree to work until their bodies broke? Did they agree to be processed when they could no longer be useful? Voris felt his scales tighten. Everything we do is legal. The galactic courts have upheld our claims repeatedly. If you interfere with our operations, you will be in violation of 100 treaties. I understand. Okonkwo leaned forward. So let me make you an offer. The United Human Government hereby assumes all debts owed by the Moro species. We will pay what they owe. Voris could not hide his surprise. Then he laughed. 847 trillion credits? Your entire economy does not produce that much in a decade. This is a joke. No joke. Calculate the amount. We will pay. You cannot possibly. We do not have money. Okonkwo smiled. It was not a friendly smile. But we have something else. A data package arrived on Voris's screen. He opened it, and his yellow eyes went wide. This is a complete technical database of human military technology. Jump drives, shield harmonics, weapon systems, everything that makes human ships the fastest and deadliest in the galaxy. Okonkwo paused. Conservative estimates value this information at 1 quadrillion credits. We will accept the difference as change. Voris stared at the data. His mind raced through the implications. With this technology, the hegemony could dominate every trade route in known space. They could crush their rivals. They could become the supreme power in the galaxy. All they had to do was give up the Moro. This is unprecedented, he said. So is enslaving the people who saved our ancestors. Do we have a deal? Vorus wanted to refuse. He wanted to find a loophole, a trick, a way to take the technology and keep the slaves. But the human fleet hung in space above him, weapons armed, shields raised. And the Admiral's eyes held no room for negotiation. "We have a deal," Vorus said finally. "The debt is cleared. The Moro are free." The contracts were signed within the hour. Legally binding. Unbreakable. And then the first Moro emerged from the mines. They came out slowly, blinking in the light of stars they had not seen in decades. Old ones and young ones. Workers with broken bodies and children with bleeding hands. They looked up at the human ships and did not understand. Rosa Martinez was there to meet them. She found Soft Rain at dawn in the crowd and knelt beside her. "You came," the child whispered. "You really came." "We promised," Rosa said. "And humans keep their promises." On the command deck, Vorus watched the Moro boarding human transport ships. His scales twitched with suppressed rage. "You have made a powerful enemy today, Admiral," he said. "The hegemony does not forget debts. Or insults." Okonkwo turned to face him. His expression had not changed. Still calm. Still peaceful. Still dangerous. "Neither do we." The human fleet jumped away, carrying 140,000 freed Moro toward home. The stars had never looked brighter. For the first time in her life, Soft Rain at dawn saw her homeworld from space. The planet was a swirl of purple and green, wrapped in clouds that looked like silver silk. It was beautiful, more beautiful than anything she had ever imagined. And it was hers. The journey from Ashfall Station had taken 3 weeks. 3 weeks of strange experiences. Human doctors treating wounds that had never been treated. Human counselors talking to children who had never been asked how they felt. Human families sharing meals with Moro refugees who had never eaten food that was not rationed. Soft Rain had been assigned to a ship called the Constellation. The family there, the Osays, were descended from survivors of New Brisbane. The same colony ship that Soft Rain's ancestors had saved 200 years ago. Dr. Hannah Osay showed her the family records. Old photographs of tired, hungry humans being helped off a broken ship. Letters of gratitude that had been passed down through generations. A Moro blessing, recorded in audio and preserved for 2 centuries. "Your people saved mine," Hannah said, holding Soft Rain's small hands in her own. "We never forgot. We were just lost for a while. We did not know where you were." Soft Rain did not know how to respond. In the mines, she had learned that kindness was weakness, that hope was foolishness, that the strong took and the weak suffered. The humans were teaching her something different. The convoy entered orbit around the Moro homeworld. Human reconstruction teams had been working for months, clearing the overgrown cities, repairing the infrastructure, preparing the planet for its people to return. The work was not finished, but it was enough. The landing ceremony was simple. No speeches, no celebrations. Just a single transport ship touching down on soil that had not felt Moro feet in 80 years. The first to step out was an elder named Deep Roots in Stone. He was the oldest survivor, one of the few who still remembered the day they were taken away. His bark-like skin was cracked and faded. His forearms trembled. But his eyes were cleared. He walked down the ramp slowly. When his feet touched the ground, he stopped. Then he fell to his knees and pressed his hands into the soil. His body shook with great, heaving sobs that sounded like whined through dying leaves. Admiral Okonkwo stood beside him. He said nothing. Some moments needed no words. Other Moro followed. Families reunited. Children saw their homeworld for the first time. Elders wept for friends who had not survived to see this day. The purple sky stretched overhead, and for one perfect moment, everything was right. But Soft Rain saw the shadows on the Admiral's face. "Something is wrong," she said to Rosa Martinez, who had stayed close to her since the liberation. Rosa hesitated. Then she nodded. "The hegemony is not happy. They have been building ships on their borders. Our intelligence says they are planning something. They want revenge. They want to show the galaxy that nobody defies them. If they let us walk away with no consequences, others might try the same thing." Soft Rain thought about this. In the mines, she had learned that power only understood power. Kindness was not enough. Hope was not enough. Sometimes you had to fight. "What will you do?" Rosa looked at her with sad eyes. "We will protect you, whatever it takes." On the last day of the ceremony, Soft Rain approached Admiral Okonkwo. The old human looked tired. The weight of what was coming pressed down on his shoulders. She pressed something into his hand. It was the new Brisbane insignia, worn smooth by generations of Moro hands. My people want to give this back, she said, and we want to give something else. Okonkwo looked at the small piece of metal. This belongs to your family. I cannot accept it. It belongs to both our peoples now. It is a symbol of the bond between us, a bond that can never be broken. Soft Rain straightened, and for a moment, she looked much older than her years. The Moro remember their debts too, Admiral. You came for us when no one else would. You gave us back our world. You gave us back our hope. She looked up at him with ancient eyes. When the hegemony comes, we will not hide behind you. We will stand beside you. The Moro were peaceful once, but we can learn to fight. We can learn to protect the people who protected us. Okonkwo studied her for a long moment. Then he knelt down, so their eyes were level. You should not have to fight. You have suffered enough. So have you. But some things are worth fighting for. She touched his hand. You taught us that. You taught the whole galaxy that. When the strong use law to crush the weak, someone must stand against them. When cruelty hides behind paperwork, someone must say no. And if we lose? Soft Rain smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. Then we lose together. As friends. As family. She looked at the setting sun, painting the purple sky with gold. The Moro have been alone for 80 years. We are not alone anymore. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Okonkwo stood. He looked at the insignia in his hand, at the young Moro girl, at the homeworld rising in the evening light. Together, he said, somewhere beyond the stars, the hegemony was building its fleet, but so were the humans, and so were the Moro. 3,000 hegemony warships darkened the stars. 5 years had passed since the liberation. 5 years of preparation. 5 years of waiting. And now the hegemony had come to collect a different kind of debt. Director Voris commanded the armada from his flagship. He had spent every day of those 5 years planning this moment. The humans had humiliated his people. They had taken what belonged to the hegemony. They had shown the galaxy that the scaled masters could be defied. That lesson needed to be corrected. Attention, human fleet, Voris broadcast. You are outnumbered 7-1. Surrender now. Return our technology. Accept tributary status. Or be destroyed. The human response came from Admiral Okonkwo. His face was calm on the view screen. Almost bored. No. Voris bared his teeth. You cannot win this fight. Your fleet is 400 ships. We have 3,000. The mathematics are simple. Mathematics can be deceiving. Voris ordered the attack. His ships surged forward, weapons charging, shields raised. Victory was certain. The humans would learn their place. The galaxy would remember who held power. Then his sensors screamed warnings. Ships were appearing everywhere. Hundreds of them, dropping out of fold space all around the battlefield. Voris checked his displays, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. They were not human ships. They were Moro ships. Sleek wooden vessels that looked like flying forests. 1,000 of them, rebuilt with human technology and crewed by a people who had learned that peace sometimes required war. But the Moro were not alone. More signatures appeared. Different designs. Different species. Ships that looked like crystals, singing strange frequencies as they powered up. Ships that swam through space like living creatures. Ships carved from solid stone. Ships that seemed to be made of pure light. What is this? Voris whispered. Captain Soft Rain at Dawn answered him. Her face appeared on every screen in his fleet. She was no longer a child. She was a warrior, commanding the lead Moro vessel, her 4 hands steady on the controls. The hegemony believes that all debts must be paid, she said. We agree. Her voice hardened. Before our people were enslaved, we wandered the stars for centuries. We traded with hundreds of species. We helped them when they needed help. We expected nothing in return. But they remembered. More ships arrived. The Crystalline Choir, whose plague the Moro had cured. The deep swimmers of Oceanus, whose lost colony the Moro had found. The Stone Singers. The Wind Walkers. The children of the outer dark. Species from across the galaxy, answering a call that had gone out 5 years ago. You enslaved our people for 80 years, Soft Rain continued. You separated families. You worked our elders to death. You broke our spirits and stole our future. The Allied fleet moved into position. Human tactical coordination. Moro determination. The combined knowledge of a dozen civilizations. Your debt is now due. Voris looked at his sensors. He was no longer outnumbered. He was surrounded. This is impossible, he said. We are the hegemony. We have ruled for 1,000 years. You ruled through fear and legal tricks. Okonkwo's voice cut through the channel. You thought you were untouchable because no single species could stand against you. You were right about that. He paused. But you forgot something. Kindness creates bonds that last longer than empires. The Moro spent centuries building those bonds. And now those bonds have become a wall that you cannot break. The battle lasted 6 hours. The hegemony fought hard, but they were fighting more than ships. They were fighting an idea. The idea that cruelty could be legal but never right. The idea that the powerful could not simply take what they wanted. The idea that somewhere in the cold universe, kindness still mattered. When Vorus finally surrendered, his fleet was shattered. His dream of vengeance was a SH to in the weeks that followed. The hegemony was dismantled. Their slave worlds were freed. Their trade monopolies were broken. Their leaders faced trial for crimes that legal paperwork could no longer hide. That on the Moro homeworld, Soft Rain stood on a hill overlooking a city that was finally alive again. Children played in the streets. Elders told stories. Families rebuilt what had been stolen from them. Admiral Okonkwo found her there. He was older now, tired, but satisfied. You won, she said. We won, he corrected. All of us. Together. You started it. You could have ignored that old data chip. You could have decided the political cost was too high. You could have left us to die in those mines. No. Okonkwo shook his head. We could not. 200 years ago, your ancestors gave everything to save strangers. They did not ask why. They did not calculate the cost. They simply helped because it was right. He looked at her. How could we do any less? Soft Rain smiled. You taught the galaxy something important. Kindness is not weakness. Mercy is not foolishness. When good people stand together, even the mightiest powers can fall. She looked up at the stars. You taught them that debts of love are the only ones worth paying. Okonkwo nodded. The Moro taught us that first. We were just returning the favor. Below them, the city celebrated its freedom. Across the galaxy, 1,000 species told the story of what happened when humanity remembered a debt and paid it in full, even if it broke worlds.